Hi, welcome back to Not So Obvious Watches. I'm Pete McConville. Ever since I've been in this hobby, which is coming up on a little over 6 years now, I think, it's been hard to get some Rolexes. A couple of years ago, it became hard to get any sports Rolexes. And about 2 years ago, it became hard to even see a sports Rolex. And about a year ago, it became hard to see any Rolexes in an AD. Recently, we've begun to see echoes of that in other brands. Like I'm a Breitling guy, which until recently had a reputation of massively overproducing huge amounts of inventory, any watch you want available at discount. Even now in a city like Melbourne with a really well stocked and really a lot of boutiques and big powerful ADs, there's a whole bunch of watches I just can't even see. A lot of you have begun to ask on my channel, how are ADs making money if they haven't got any product to sell? I think the first thing is, I think they do have product to sell. I think it is being sold. I'll talk about that very briefly. So how is it being sold if you never get to see it? I want to talk about a thing called clienting, and we'll do that after the intro. Okay, first off, I'm just going to touch on this really briefly because I'm going to do a whole video on this in about a month when we've got the final end of year figures from FH on Swiss exports for 2021. But very briefly, even at this point, looking at the export numbers for the more expensive watches that we're generally talking about here, what you see is the numbers of watches being exported from Switzerland are very healthy. They are not 20-30% less than they were back in 2019. They're pretty close to the same numbers. So that would tell me that this is not a supply issue. This is a demand issue. Watches are certainly getting to ADs and are certainly being sold, but we're just not seeing them. So the question then becomes, how are they being sold? That is where the word clienting comes in. I'll go back a step and tell a little story. I was recently talking to a guy at an AD, and I didn't ask for permission to talk about him or his company like on YouTube, so I won't. I'll keep this really general. We were just having a chat though about stuff, and it was he was a wonderful guy to deal with. And I was just curious, how did they go over the lockdown period? We had a very intense and quite long lockdown in Melbourne. How had the store gone? And he said, for many people, it was the busiest time of their lives. They had worked so hard and they had sold so many watches. And the reason they did that was they simply switched how they did things and started using what in the industry would be called clienting, actively going out and finding sales. Going back through the list of contacts, people that had put themselves on wait lists, people that had been at functions, people that had bought off them, actively finding those people, offering them watches which had come in, arranging to meet them in COVID-safe ways, in places that were allowed and in ways that were allowed, to show them watches and then have them buy them, have them order them, have them get them for the next one. That didn't stop when lockdown ended. People have got used to A, being treated that way, and B, treating people that way. It's not uncommon now that ADs will actively have pre-sold the watches that are coming to them. That is how clienting works. It's been something that's been done at the high end for a long, long time. It just seems to have now devolved right down to, your $2,000 and $3,000 Super Ocean Heritage is being cliented out to other buyers, people that have expressed interest, and sold before it even turns up at the AD. One thing I really need to stress is this is not the same as having like a preferred customer arrangement. This is very different. This is not playing some zero-sum game of pitting potential buyers against each other to see who has the biggest spend history and therefore gets it. All of these watches are in series production, all these Breitlings and all these Seamasters and Speedmasters. You can get them. You might have to wait. But the one thing that has changed is you might never get to see one in real life before you've bought it. I have not been able to find a lot of Breitling Chronomats, a lot of Seamasters, a lot of the Seamaster, the Heritage one, not the M, I think it's just, I can't remember what it's called. The one with the sort of sandwich style, very hard to find in real life. Haven't been able to find a lot of Bulgaris, Bulgari World Timer. I've been told every one of those that's coming to Australia has been sold already. They just come straight in and go straight back out again. That said, in every single case, there's been no question of if you spend more money, we'll put you on the list. You only have to wait. That's probably the difference between what I would call healthy clienting and unhealthy preferred customer exclusivity kind of practices. I'm happy to wait. I'm just not happy to have to be, spend a certain amount before I'm even allowed to buy a watch. Now, I don't know how you feel about it. And I don't know if clienting in these other, at the moment, less in-demand watches may one day get to be preferred client only, must have spend history, that sort of thing. That would be a terrible outcome. And it's one of the things I fear most about where this is going. How do I feel about the situation right now, about the idea that I can't just walk straight in and buy that Breitling Chronomat with the salmon dial that I might like right now? I'm kind of in two minds. There's a little part of me that would obviously love it to be there. I'd love it to be able to get there and necessarily just say, and I expect a discount. Cool, that would be great. At the same time, that's my personal view, looking at the way the community has been, again, going back through my time in this hobby, no stick has been used more frequently or harder to beat brands than the poor resale and the expectation of a discount. As soon as those brands that overproduced, that made sure that you always had excess stock on hand in case you wanted to buy one, those brands get labeled as shitters, those brands get labeled as toxic, those brands people are warned away from them. So I can kind of, whilst it's not my personal preference, where we're at now, where there isn't excess stock, where you don't get to just go in and look at any watch you want, where you might have to order and wait, is probably the logical place that we were always going to get to, because that's what the community had been demanding, was how a good watch company ran itself. If that's as far as it ever goes, if it only ever gets to the point that, oh my God, I might have to wait a couple of months, oh my God, I might not get a discount, but I know I'm going to get the product and I know I'm not going to have to pay more than MSRP, I can live with that. That's not a problem. My great fear, and I think I said this before, is that we go further, that we end up in a Rolex-like bidding war, zero-sum game, consumer against consumer, pitted against each other as enemies, that I really get worried. So anyway, that's where I'm at the moment. That's what I'm seeing. I'd be curious to know what you think about the process of clienting, the idea. Do you think there's a distinction between clienting and preferred customers like I'm making? Is it somehow different? What's your experience been? Do you think that this is all going to change? We're going to go back. Have a chat in the comments below. I've been Pete McConville. This has been Not So Obvious Watches. I'll see you later. Bye.